This video is for Algebra Section 6.2, and we already have our learning goal up there. Learning goal for this lesson is the learner will apply knowledge of inequalities to solve them using multiplication and division. So if you did Section 6.1, this should look almost exactly the same, except that in Section 6.1 we used addition and subtraction. In this one you're going to be using multiplication and division, so they're very similar. Our vocabulary is multiplication property of inequality. Again, we had the multiplication property of equality before. And if you remember, property of equality would have said something like, if I had 4x, oops, sorry, not that. If I had x over 4 equal to 5, I could have multiplied both sides by 4 and got x equals 20. For the property of inequality, it's very much the same thing. So if I had the same thing, if I had x over 4, but I had a less than sign or a greater than sign, or a less than or equal to, or a greater than or equal to sign, then I could still multiply both sides by 4 and get x is less than 20. The only thing that is different, and it is very important, right here, it says unless c is negative, then AC is greater than BC. In this case, you should notice this before it said less than, now it says greater than. If I multiplied this by a negative, so I had something like negative x over 4 is greater than 5, and I wanted to multiply by negative 4 to get rid of the negative and the 4 on both sides, those will still cancel. You'll still get x, and you'll still get negative 20 in this case. But this sign had to flip. If you multiply or divide by a negative, it's going to flip. All right. And the division property is pretty much the same thing. So you can divide both sides by something, in this case c, and they'll still be true unless it's negative. If it's negative, you've got to flip the sign. So again, if I had something like 4x is greater than 8, I could divide both sides by 4 and get x is greater than 2. Or in the case of a negative, if I had something like negative 2 times x is less than 4, I could divide by negative 2. Those would cancel, and you would get x, and you get negative 2. But this sign would have to flip because I divided by a negative 2. Okay? And our prerequisite skills are up there. It says solving equations. If you know how to solve equations, you'll be able to do this. This should be very simple if you know how to solve equations. If you don't, it might be hard. All right, and that is all of the notes. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to the sample problems. So, starting on number 1, I'll go through the odds. Number 1, we have y over 6 is less than or equal to 2. We want y by itself, so we got to get rid of the divided by 6, opposite of dividing. We're going to multiply by 6 on both sides. So those will cancel. You get y is less than or equal to 12. And it does say you need to check your answers. So I need to pick a number to put in for y that is less than or equal to 12. When you do this, you want to pick a number that's going to make it easy to check. So remember, whatever my y I choose is, I have to divide it by 6. So you probably want to pick a number that's divisible by 6 so that your work will be easy. So I'm going to go ahead and pick 12 because it says it could be less than or equal to 12. So I could use 12. So where y was, I put 12. Everything else from the original statement is back. Then 12 divided by 6 is 2. And I have to make sure it works. Is 2 less than or equal to 2? Yeah, it's equal, so that works. So my answer was correct. Number 3. We have 3/5 h is greater than or equal to negative 3. And we want to get rid of this 3/5. So if you remember from solving equations, when you have a fraction, you want it to go away, you've got to times by the reciprocal, which means you flip it upside down. And do the same thing on the other side. And for some of you, it helps to put that 1 underneath. 5 divided by 5 will cancel, and 3 divided by 3 will cancel. And you get h is greater than or equal to The 3's you could go ahead and cancel, and you get negative times 5, which is just negative 5. And even though there was a negative involved, I didn't multiply or divide by a negative number, so my sign is not flipping, it's staying just like that. Okay, and we need to check our answer, so we need to pick a number greater than or equal to negative 5, keeping in mind that I'm going to have to multiply it by 3/5. So I would want to pick something that's divisible by 5. And again, it has greater than or equal to, so I'm going to pick negative 5. So if I do 3/5 times negative 5 is greater than or equal to negative 3. So I just changed the h in the original statement to a negative 5. 5 divided by 5 will cancel. You get negative times 3, which is negative 3. Greater than or equal to negative 3. That is true. So my answer was correct. Alright, moving on. Number 5. Number 5 says 1/4 n is greater than or equal to 10. Again, I want n by itself, so I want to get rid of the 1/4. So I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal. In this case, you can write 4 or 4/1, whichever way you prefer to write it. I'm just going to write 4. 4's would cancel. I would get n greater than or equal to 40. So to check, I need to pick a number bigger than 40. Keeping in mind, I want to be able to divide it by 4 because I don't want to make this harder on myself. Again, it's got greater than or equal to, so the easy one is just to pick 40. If I do 1/4 times 40, greater than or equal to 10. 40 times 1 divided by 4, or 40 divided by 4 times 1. Either way, I'm going to get 10 greater than or equal to 10. That is true, so this is correct. Number 7. We have 3m over 5 less than negative 3 over 20. This again is really 3/5 times m. It doesn't matter that that m is sitting on top instead of next to it. You still want to get rid of the 3 and the 5. So I'm still going to multiply by the reciprocal on both sides. Over here my 5 cancels, my 3 cancels, I have m. Over here the 3's will cancel. I can reduce 5 and 20. I could divide them both by 5 and get 1 and 4. So bring down that negative and the 1 and the 4. So I have m is less than negative 1/4. Alright, I need to check it by picking a number that is less than negative 1/4. Keeping in mind that I want to be able to divide it by 5 to make it easier on myself. In this case, I'm going to choose negative 5. Alright, so I'm going to replace my m with negative 5 in the original statement, which was this. 3 times negative 5 is negative 15, divided by 5 is negative 3. Is negative 3 less than negative 3 over 20? Well, these are whole numbers, and this isn't even a negative 1 yet, so yeah, it is less. So that checks, and I can use that answer. Number 9 says g over 5 is greater than or equal to negative 2. I'm going to multiply both sides by 5 to get rid of that divided by 5, because divided and multiplying would be inverse operations. G is greater than or equal to negative 2 times 5 is negative 10. Alright, so now I need to pick pick a number that is greater than or equal to negative 10. And it does have to be able to divide by 5. I could use negative 10, I could use negative 5, I could use 0. Doesn't really matter at this point. I'm going to use 0. So I'll replace my g with 0. Put in 0 over 5 is greater than or equal to negative 2. That's 0. Is 0 greater than or equal to negative 2? Yes, it is. So my answer is correct. Number 11. We have n over 10 greater than or equal to 5.4. Multiply both sides by 10 to get rid of the divided by 10. Those will cancel. N is greater than or equal to 5.4 times 10. You should know when you multiply by 10, you just move this decimal one place over. So I get 54. So I want my number to be greater than or equal to 54. Keep in mind I have to divide it by 10, which is pretty easy to do anyway. But I might as well pick a number that's going to make it really easy. Something greater than or equal to 54 that's divisible by 10. Easiest one would be 60. So 60 over 10 is greater than or equal to 5.4. That's, sorry, what am I doing? 60 divided by 10 should leave you with 6. 6 is greater than or equal to 5.4. That's true. And that means my answer works. Number 13. On number 13, you need to define a variable, write an inequality, and solve each problem. Then check your solution. So the first thing I need to do is define my variable. I'm going to say let x be a number. And then it says half of a number. Half of, you should always know, is multiply. Half of a number means times the x is at least 14. Think about at least. If I said something costs at least $5, that means it's $5 or more. So that means it's greater than or equal to. And it says is at least $14, so greater than or equal to 14. So I need that 1/2 to go away so that x is by itself. In order to do that, I multiply by the reciprocal on both sides to keep it even. So I get x is greater than or equal to 14 times 2 is 28. And I do need to check my answer. So I need to pick a number that is greater than or equal to 28 that I can divide by 2 easily. I could use 28, that's fine. So 1/2, replace x with 28, greater than or equal to 14. And you should know multiplying by a half is the same as dividing by 2. If you don't, 28 times 1 divided by 2 is 14. Greater than or equal to 14. That's true because they're equal. So my answer works. Last one on this page is number 15. Again, define a variable. I'm going to use the same thing. Let x be a number. You can use any letter you want. I just use x for habit. Number 15 says 1/5 of a number. So 1/5 of, we already said, means multiplication. So of a number means times x, is at most 30. So it's got to be less than or equal to 30 because it's at most 30. I want x by itself, so I want to get rid of the 1/5. You can do that by multiplying by 5 over 1. Reduce, sorry. X is less than or equal to 30 times 5 should give you 150. So I need an x to be less than or equal to 150. So I want to choose a number that I know is divisible by 5, and probably I want to choose something that, even though I know it's divisible by 5, some of these numbers might be, I don't know what the answer is if I divide by 5. I'm going to choose 100 because I know what 1/5 of 100 is. You could choose any number less than or equal to 150. 100 times 1 divided by 5 should be 20. Less than or equal to 30. That is true. So this answer was correct. And then we will move on to the second page. You should have noticed that page we were multiplying all the time. That was using the multiplication property of inequality. The next page we will be using the division property of inequality. So number 1 on the second page of section 6.2 says 25g is greater than or equal to negative 100. We need g by itself, so right now it's 25 times g. The opposite of multiplying is divide, so divide by 25. 25's will cancel. Leaves me with g is greater than or equal to negative 100 divided by 25 is negative 4. Again, there was a negative involved, but I didn't divide by a negative number, so I don't have to flip the sign. It stays the way it was. But I do need to pick a number to plug in to check my answer. So I need something that I can multiply by 25 pretty easily. 25 is like a quarter, so it should be pretty easy anyway. But I need something that is greater than or equal to negative 4. I could use 0. That would make everything very easy. So 25 times 0 is greater than or equal to negative 100. 0 is greater than or equal to negative 100. Is that true? Yeah. So my answer works. On to number 3. Number 3 says negative 5c is greater than 2. You have negative 5 times c, so to get rid of the multiplying, I need to divide by negative 5 on both sides. So c is greater than negative 2/5. And even though the negative was on the bottom number, it doesn't matter where you put it. It's just the whole negative, the whole 2/5 is negative. It doesn't matter if you put the negative on top or bottom. And what did I forget to do? I divided by a negative number, didn't I? If I multiply or divide by a negative number, you should remember this sign that said greater than is going to flip to less than. We just didn't happen to have any problems on the first page where we had to do that. This page will have quite a few that you do. So I did have to flip my sign to say c is less than negative 2/5. So I need to plug in a number that is less than negative 2/5. I'm going to choose to use negative 1. So if I use negative 5 times negative 1 greater than 2. Negative 5 times negative 1 is positive, positive 5. Positive 5 is greater than 2. That's true. So this answer works. All right, so that was the first one where we had to flip it. Make sure you remember to do that. Number 5. We have negative 6k less than 1/5. We want to get k by itself. Right now it's multiplied by negative 6. So to undo that, I'm going to have to divide by negative 6 on both sides. Those will cancel. I get k. Remember, we divided by a negative, so flip that sign. And this is the point where some people may get confused. I have 1/5 divided by negative 6. All you do if you have a fraction and you're dividing by another number, you multiply it to the denominator. So I'm going to multiply the 5 and the negative 6 and get a negative 1/30. And again, I need to plug in something to check my answer that is greater than negative 1/30. I'm going to choose 0. So if I put in negative 6 times 0 less than 1/5. Negative 6 times 0 is 0. And 1/5. 0 is less than 1/5, so that works. So my answer was correct. Number 7. We have 30 is less than negative 3n. I want to get n by itself, so I'm going to have to divide by negative 3 on both sides. 30 divided by negative 3 is negative 10. If I divided by a negative 3, I need to flip that sign. Those will cancel and give me n. And we always want to rewrite it so the variable is on the left. So I'm going to have n, keep it pointing toward the n with negative 10. And I need to pick a number to plug in. For my check, we should have n less than negative 10. So I want to pick a number less than negative 10. And we do need to divide it by, oh no, we don't, never. Pick anything you want less than negative 10. I'm going to choose negative 11. So 30 is less than negative 3 times negative 11. 30 is less than negative 3 times negative 11 would give me positive 33. Is 30 less than 33? Yes. So my answer here was correct. Moving on to number 9. Number 9 says 25 is greater than or equal to negative 2m. We want to get m by itself, so I have to divide by negative 2. And 25 divided by negative 2, you can choose to use a decimal or to leave it as a improper fraction. I'm in this case going to use a decimal. Doesn't matter. It is a positive divided by a negative, so I'll get negative 12.5 or negative 12.5, or you could leave it as negative 25/2. I did divide by a negative 2, so my sign is going to flip, and I bring my m down. We want to write the variable on the left, so move it over. It's still trying to eat the m, and the negative 12.5 goes on the other side. And I need to check my answer by picking a number greater than or equal to negative 12.5. I'm going to choose negative 13. Will that work? And this is the mistake a lot of people are making. M is got to be greater than negative 12.5. Is negative 13 greater than negative 12.5? No. You could use negative 12, so let's do that. So 25 is greater than or equal to negative 2 times negative 12. 25 is greater than or equal to, negative times a negative is a positive, 2 times 12 is 24. Is 25 greater than or equal to 24? Yes. So that answer was correct. Number 11, we have negative 2n greater than or equal to 6.2. I want to get n by itself, so I'm going to divide by negative 2 on both sides. And this was a negative number that I divided by, so I have to flip my sign. 6.2 divided by 2 should give you, and it was negative, so 3.1. I need to check my answer by picking a number less than or equal to negative 3.1. I'm going to choose negative 4. That would be less, so that worked. Negative 2, replace the n with negative 4, greater than or equal to 6.2. Negative 2 times negative 4 is positive 8, greater than or equal to 6.2. That is true, so this works. And I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next problem on number 13. Number 13 says negative 40 is greater than 10h. We want to get h by itself, so I'm going to divide by 10 on both sides. That will cancel. You get rid of the zeros if you want. Negative 4 divided by 1 is just negative 4. Greater than h. Rewrite it so the variable is on the left, keeping the sign, matching the right numbers. H is less than negative 4, so I need to plug in a number less than negative 4. So negative 5 is what I'm going to choose. Negative 40 is greater than 10 times negative 5. Negative 40 is greater than negative 50. That's true, so my answer worked. Number 15. Is negative 3 less than p over 4? We want to get p by itself, so I'm going to multiply by 4 on both sides to undo the dividing by 4. 4 times negative 3 is negative 12 less than p. Rewrite it so the variable is on the left, keeping it eating the right number, or letter in this case. P is greater than negative 12, so I need to pick a number greater than negative 12, keeping in mind that I have to divide it by 4 when I check it, so I want to pick something easy to divide by 4. So negative 3 is less than, I'm going to choose negative 16. That's greater, right? Again, think about your work. Is negative 16 really greater than negative 12? No, it's not. So how about negative 8? Negative 8 is greater than negative 12, so that would work. All right. Negative 3 is less than negative 8 divided by 4 is negative 2. That's true. So my answer was right. On to number 17. Number 17, we need to define a variable. So I'm going to say let x be a number. You can use whatever letter you want. It says the opposite of 3 times a number. What does the opposite really mean? That's what this sign means. That's the opposite. So negative, or the opposite, of 3 times a number, we said a number was x, is greater than, so it's greater than 12. I want to get x by itself. Right now it's multiplied by negative 3, so I'm going to do the opposite, so divide by negative 3 on both sides. X is greater than negative 4. I need to check my answer. Is that right? If you do the check, you will find out if I made a mistake. If I check this and I pick a number greater than negative 4, like 0, I would put negative 3 times 0 greater than 12. And I got 0 greater than 12. That's not true, is it? No. So that means I made a mistake somewhere. Hopefully you have already identified that a while ago. You should have noticed right here I divided by negative 3. If I divide by a negative, you need to remember to flip your sign. So then I need to pick a number less than negative 4. So how about negative 5? Negative 3 times negative 5 greater than 12. That's 15 greater than 12. That is true. And my answer worked. Alright, so at this point, I am done with lesson 6.2.